Man, I don't see a lot of structure to sales processes. As a matter of fact, it is the gospel.
I've always had a passion for helping people. That's what I'm here for, is to just to help people out, and no matter what I can.
This industry is really good at the no contact, no pitch yet nurture sequencing.
Think of every conversation you have or every piece of information you put out there, whatever it is, that's always like it's like a $20,000.
There's always a lot of tactical stuff, but so much of it is mindset. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Leads to Deals podcast, where we talk about everything from leads to deals, and everything we talk about leads to deals. You're here because you're obsessed with leveling up, dominating sales, mastering persuasion, and skyrocketing your financial success. I believe we have a true thought leader, operational guru in the REI industry on the Leads to Deals podcast today. His name's Brian Snider. He's the Chief Operating Officer of what I believe, again, to be the industry's best mastermind called Collective Genius, with a unique story from teacher to entrepreneur. He's led and consulted and collaborated with some of the greatest minds that this industry has ever known, and is one of the best to ever leverage relationship capital to help others build and scale their businesses. So welcome to the podcast, Brian Snider.
Thanks for having me, Scott. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited to talk sales. I'm usually stuck, in the box of like talking operations and that side, but I actually have a sales profile. So I'm excited to talk about some sales stuff with you today, brother.
Dude, yeah, I'm excited about it as well, too. I want to ask some kind of like right out of the gates questions, man. You're the Chief Operating Officer of one of the most dynamic and impactful masterminds out there. What do you think's been the most impactful thing you've done as COO, or you've seen implemented as COO since you got into this leadership role?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to a lot of the big thing is implementation of stuff. So I think it's really easy for business leaders or solopreneurs or even just individuals to come up with that, have those ideas and to come up with that plan of what they want to do, but actually executing on it and going out there and coming up with that, like, hey, here's the, whenever I have an idea, I always think about okay, what's the implementation schedule for this? So maybe it's a day by day implementation schedule, a week by week, or a month by month. So I think really kind of focusing of hey, this is the big picture and here's what I want to do, but here's how I'm going to get there. So I think a lot of people maybe sometimes they fall short because they don't focus on they know what they want to do, but how are we going to do it? And then how am I going to get there? What are those steps? I think it's key, man.
What's the leadership team there at the top of CG, man? Like, what is it? Is it more cowboys? Is it more like analytical guys? What does it look like behind the scenes, Brian?
I will say, so Jason Medley and I have a unique perspective where I have a little bit more of maybe an entrepreneurial profile, and he has a little bit more of an operator profile, but we're in opposite roles. So we actually counterbalance each other pretty well on we both have a bunch of ideas and want to run hard and grow things fast, but we do a pretty good job of slowing each other down at the time of hey, wait, we're kind of at capacity here. Let's pull back on this. Or, he might say the same thing to me, but at the same time, we have a bunch of ideas and a bunch of lists and stuff that we want to get to and I want to tackle and a lot of goals that we get to. But the reality is between he and myself, we have it's a great opportunity and a great relationship to where any goal we've set for ourselves, or set for the CG or the group or the community, whatever it is, we've tackled it. We've gone after it. So we're both also hard chargers and winners and competitive and stuff like that. And then along with us, we have a great support system too. So between Leon and Danielle, and then at our events, our facilitators that are out there running operations within their industries and stuff like that, they help us out with our events. We have a great support system, a great team. And I think that's something we really capitalized on over, especially the last, I'd say, year of bringing on great talent that are leaders that we don't hire anybody we want to stay in that role. I want to hire them for that role, but then they want to grow out of that and get better and just really improve in leadership and everything.
I'm thinking of how I'm saying this as I go to say it, because it may not sound good, but I promise you this is a compliment. What I love about CG is almost the diluted exceptionalism. And so what I mean by that is it's just not one tip of the spear. It has been spread out, and there's multiple people who are at the top, the elite prong. And it's not just Jason. It's not just you. And it's this really distributed awesomeness that's so wide that you can always kind of find your place. And I wonder, was that done by happen chance, or is it just the personalities?
Completely intentional by that's what it's all about. So, there's never, honestly, the CG isn't about Jason. It's his baby, but it's not about him. It's about the community. The reason that we are, the number one mastermind, in my opinion, in the US, and a lot of people will say that, is because for real estate investors, is because it's not about one person's opinion or what one person's saying on stage or them coaching a particular thing. It's about what the community is doing. So, Scott, you're a good example of this in the group. If you need help of like, hey, I'm trying to do, I need help with my operations. You're obviously a sales guy and you got a great support system on your operations team, but it's like, hey, I want to learn how to do this, or I need to do a hiring process or whatever that may be. Well, you can talk to a bunch of other people that have, hey, I'm going to connect you with somebody that did it last month and then went through that same thing. And then somebody that did it like, 6 months ago and a year ago. So that's what makes the community so special. It's about the community brings the content. It's not just us. We're not bringing all the content. We're not bringing all the coaching. The community does. The people that have lived it, done it, been through it, messed up with it, have figured out what not to do, and they get to come back and like kind of work with that and teach that. So that's what it's all about.
I know there's a better quote of this, but it's like, the average man learns from his mistakes. The exceptional man learns from others' mistakes. Yeah. And what I love is there's some real deal players. Like you can get humbled real quick by just people having a general small conversation in that group, the Collective Genius, but nobody's banging their chest. And it's this weird dynamic. And so that's what I love because I feel like the community you and Jason have built is so humbled that everybody does share their losses, and you can learn from other people's losses and you can learn from the wins. But what you find is most of the people there are trying to address something that's happened on the downturn, and or they just got out of it and they want to share those successes. And I just never gotten in the community or experienced anything like that.
For sure. I mean, that's what it's all about. I think I think the number one comment we get, especially for people that come to their first event, is, man, I can't believe everybody's just so willing to help me.
Yeah.
And like people in same markets and stuff like that. I was talking to some guys from Sacramento the other day, and they actually have an agreement. There's 3 people within Sacramento, but they have an agreement of like, if somebody's like progressed so far in this deal, then the other 2 just like lay off. Yeah. And things. So that's really cool. And you talk about the humility and stuff. As I went through that as a member 8 years ago when I first came into the CG room of, me and Brent were doing 300 deals a year in Indianapolis. And, I'm thinking like, oh man, we're big shots and stuff. And real quickly, I realized in that room of like, there are people in that market. If they came into the Indianapolis market, they would have wiped us out. Of like, man, we got a lot of ways to grow and things like that. But that's what I love about it. I think it's so exciting that way.
Yeah, dude, I love it too. And it's so many different pockets of the REI space. And so, a lot of guys, I tell my team all the time, I said, our avatar, we're so lucky. Our avatar is like a really cool avatar. It's like 20 to like maybe late 30s, male, testosterone driven rock stars, and they're just ready to pump, et cetera. That's like the average avatar, right? And obviously we have some of the most exceptional people that break that norm, but they also have shiny object syndrome. And so I'm sure too, sometimes you feel, because that same avatar is also like, what's next? And then they get into a room, they're like, oh shit, we're doing self-storage Thursday. You know what? After that, we're going to do mid-size apartment buildings and we're going to do this. So I'm sure part of your experience as a teacher, having to manage kids, young men and young women, I'm sure some of that's parlayed into it. So can you walk us briefly on that? Like, hey man, what are some of the similarities from when you used to be a teacher and had a classroom of kids for more? Now you got guys with cash in their pocket looking to do something stupid.
It's basically kind of the same avatar, actually. A sixth grade boy, and then or an entrepreneur. It's the same profile. Yeah. But no, it's one of those things of we like to talk about all the time. We talk about the 0 to 1. Hey, you're going to have that shiny object syndrome of kind of what's going on, but like just focus on one thing at a time. But focus on that. What's that first step to get it underway? So what's the 0 to 1? Then what's the 1 to 2? And just kind of go into step by step. But, I think the good thing about being a part of a community like CG or even within your team or your local market, whatever it is, the big thing is like being able to get that feedback from people that can be honest with you and give you an honest opinion when you say, hey, I'm going to go start up self-storage on Thursday. Like, wait, what, like, what? Tell me what's the reason behind that? Like, what's your ideal outcome from it? All right, how are you going to do that? Is your team on board with it? Do you have the resources to do it? Do you have the capacity to do it? They're actually going to ask you those questions and take you through it because that might be a great idea, but maybe not now. Maybe not now is the right time and stuff. So being able to have you call people out on that is fantastic. I kind of liken it to like a small church group on my church and stuff like that. So there's people that are actually going to call me out on my BS and be like, hey, what?
Yeah.
They're like, it's kind of the same thing in your entrepreneurial world. You want to have a group of people like that are going to like halt you or push you when you need it and stuff like that.
But you know what, man? What's so beautiful when people in that quality of room, and somehow I feel like this is going to turn into a 45-minute pitch for CG. But I really am in love with it. I enjoy every experience I've had there. But not only their natural default position is go. And so when somebody's natural default position is go and they throw some cold water on you, that is what you want. It's the people who are in your lives that natural default is no, and they're throwing cold water. That's not the recommendation that you want to default on all the time. But everybody in there is moving forward. They are throwing the spear of prosperity ahead every day, picking it up and throwing it again, and picking it up and throwing it again. And that room just elicits those types of beautiful responses.
That's what it is. I mean, it's you have to. There's basically two requirements to join CG, and that one of them is that you have to have a business that you want to scale. So if you want to stay stagnant or kind of stay in the same spot, there might be a little bit of room for it, but like that's really not who we are. We want people that want to push the boundaries and grow their business and scale and get bigger and better and things like that too. Then the other prerequisite is that you have to be a go-giver. So you have to be willing to do some presentations, jump in and help each other out and not just sit back and stuff. So I think those two things, when you're able to combine somebody that wants to drive their business and just get better in sales, get better in operations, get better in marketing, no matter what it is, and just get bigger, but get better as they do it, but then also have a go-giving mentality behind it. Like it's really cool to see.
What was your original plans, high school, college, like your vision for many, many years was you had a passion for being a teacher and you were going to be a middle school teacher. Was that the long-term goal back in the day, or did you stumble into it?
I've always been that person, honestly. It's just like that I never knew what I wanted to be. Actually, I kind of say that now. I'm 44 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'll say that from time to time. And it's the same thing when I was 20 years old back in, kind of switched around majors a couple of times, but I've always had a passion for helping people. That's what I'm here for, is to help people out, and no matter what I can. And I found that through teaching. I thought teaching was an easy thing to do. And then I always wanted to be a coach as well. So I enjoy the sports aspect of things. So I was teaching, I was coaching, working on my master's to become a principal. And once I started doing my internship to be a principal, realized real quick that was like the worst job in the world. So like basically whatever decision I make as a principal, half the people like it, half the people don't. That does not fit my personality. I need everybody to like me. That's who I am. So at that time I was just like, being a teacher, I kind of had reached all my goals. I had been doing it for 14 years at that point and had reached all my goals. I was, rated one of the best teachers kind of in our school, in our district and within the state and stuff. And I was like, I'm ready for something else. And that's why I was just like, hey, I need something else. I'm not going to be a principal. So I didn't have that. For me, I've always wanted to I want to get to that next level. No matter where I am, I want to get to the level above it and get the level above that. I need to see that growth pattern. And once I knew I wasn't going to be a principal, I needed to find something else. So that's when I connected with Brett and started kind of just working in a real estate investing company, not knowing anything about real estate, but just there was always a next level to get to. I, was doing marketing, and then I started selling properties, and then I took over operations. I took over CEO. There's always another level I could get to. And that's what I love about our industry in general, is that like, no matter what you're doing, you can do it better. And that's huge for me.
So for the guys or gals that may be REI adjacent or not even in the same ballpark, our passions are kind of similar. Like, I know that there's kids that are out there that don't know anything about the REI space, and they're hustling their ass off. And I think about like the really crappy neighborhoods that we've all driven through, lived in, whatever the situation, no matter what your background is. And there's kids in these houses sometimes that are right beside the abandoned house. Maybe it's these late teenagers, they're doing something illegal in the abandoned house. And they're trying to come up with money, and they just don't understand that they're literally surrounded by tens of thousands of dollars in opportunity. Yeah. And it's also the same thing too for people who have jobs where they've kind of maybe hit their fruition. They're like, oh, I don't even know about this, or that's sales, or, and it's like, man, I just want to inspire or share with them that you can go from teacher to REI portfolio pretty damn quick with dedication and communication, et cetera. So kind of walk me through that mindset about those people and your fears, et cetera, in your journey.
I think it's all about exposing yourself to people that are a level above you. And, I went through a period of my time, and I grew up in small town and, Southeast Ohio, in Appalachia, like not much money around there at all. And as a teacher, like, I had a good job. Like, it sounds crazy to think about, because I look back and I was making nothing, but had a good job and it was stable. And I was at the head of kind of my all my friends, the people I was surrounding myself with. I was kind of above all of them, not in a, cocky way or anything, but it's just kind of there I was. And I took like pride in that, kind of being the leader of my friend group and my pack and stuff. And then once I started kind of getting around some other people that could challenge me and kind of open my eyes to like that there's another world out there, it was huge to me. And now it's kind of just like, now that's all I think about. It's like, if I'm in that situation where I'm the smartest person in the room or the highest level, like that's not the right room for me. I'm ready to get on to the next thing. And even if I'm in the middle of the pack, I'm like, what's the next step? Who are the next people I need to talk to?
What year was it the last year you walked out of that school for the last time as a teacher?
It was 2017.
Okay.
So,
shit. That's not that long ago, brother.
Not that long ago. So so it's been, I've been out of teaching for just 8 years, and that's about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but no, that's what it all comes down to is I've always gravitated towards like leadership roles and kind of pushing myself, and I'm competitive. So I want to be at my best at all times and stuff. But so kind of being able to connect with Brett, and then being exposed to CG of like all these different entrepreneurs and things like that just opened up my world of like, man, there's a whole other world that I had no idea about of people that would push me, that would, love on me, push me and things like that, call me out my stuff. It was huge. So
dude, obviously you come with a certain level of authority and credibility, because if you can walk into somebody's house and say, hey, I actually teach and I've taught, I mean, that's a great profession and you communicate and carry yourself well. But in the beginning, those first 30, 60, 90 days, whenever you were direct to seller, how was it? Was it pretty tough in the beginning? Did you have to get your teeth kicked in a little bit, or did you just kind of glide right in?
Oh, 100%. Messed up all the time. I'm just like, why am I doing this? What do I do? Like messing up. But I mean, that's what you do. That's what I think when it comes to sales, that's what it is. Like what works for you is probably not, it might not work for me, but I might learn from your script and take it and implement it and do it. Then I'm going to make it mine. I'm going to figure out like, oh man, when I say this is not the right thing to say, or, hey, I need to put this all the little inflection or that little word changes everything up. But that's what I kind of go back to. No matter what we're doing, we can always do it better. It's the same thing with sales scripts and when you're talking to a seller and what it is. And, I think the biggest turning point for me, going direct to seller and talking to people, whether it's talking to sellers, talking to buyers, anything, it's when I was focused on the money, the sale usually fell short. When I focused on the person and the situation and getting them what they need, that's when it all clicked. That's what, and I just kind of realized that of like throughout my life, anytime I made a decision about money, like it's usually sometimes been the wrong decision. When I made it about like kind of what's best for me or best for the people around me or best for whoever I'm trying to help, when I make it about that, that's when the situation usually makes sense. And where money ends up coming to is a back end of that. It's going to come through.
It's so funny because there's always a lot of tactical stuff, but so much of it is mindset. And one of my favorite things of our presentations is called pregame. It's literally the very first part of any of my scripts, whether it's a fronter script or a closer script, there's always a section called pregame. And pregame's that mindset. And I was training my fronters here in the real estate business that I have on, like act as if. And I needed them to understand exactly what you were saying. Yes, you guys don't have the capital to go buy their house for $400,000. I understand you don't. But I want you to carry yourself in such a demeanor and you're speaking with such certainty, and you know that it's a numbers game and it's purely numbers. So that way, if you're not helping them, you're helping the next person, but you believe in the product. You have the stats to show that now is the edge of the cliff before it tanks again. And just getting them to kind of have that mindset where it's like, hey, I'm here to help you. And if I can't help you, I'm going to help the next person, but I'm not going to give up on you. Because if your doctor walked into the room, which is an analogy I gave him this morning, and they were looking down and they're like, okay, and they didn't talk with confidence and they didn't exude certainty, you feel uncomfortable. And so you're right. It's so much as mindset versus in deliverability than the actual words itself.
Yeah. And it's so true for no matter what we're doing. So today, I'm hiring for a position right now, and I had 2 interviews for yesterday, 3 today, but that's sales. By the end of each of those interviews, I wanted to make sure that person was fired up about the opportunity they could come work for that company that I was hiring for. And that's such a big deal. So there's so many things that we go throughout our daily routine that actually is sales, and focusing on that and being passionate about it. That's a great analogy. I love that you threw out there, like the doctor. Your doctor comes in and is a little uncertain and think like you're going to freak out a little bit of like what's going on. But if they have that confidence, they can say the exact same thing just a little bit of confidence makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, especially in now, right? They don't know who to trust, and there's the rumors of uncertainty. I wanted to hit you with a couple of stats I literally just got in the past 2 days, and I wanted to get your operational guidance because I know a lot of people come to you when they have a fire. And so right now, and I'll just read you in the graphics. Right now, there's more inventory available in the state of Florida. The highest level, 168,000 listings available right now online for the MLS statewide. The highest since 2008, 2009 crash. Texas, the highest in 10 years with 105,000. In the REI space, I've only gotten into it in the past 5 or so years, Brian, and I do start to see these mini cycles and these other cycles. And so I see this. Is there guidance that you guys get? Is it ever, because you've been in it longer than I have now, but is there ever like, okay, well, you're in Florida, it's time to pump the brakes? Is there ever pumping brakes part of the strategy, or is it just navigating around it?
I think it's there's two different things to that. You gotta know when to pump. You gotta know when to pump the brakes. You gotta know when to put the gas. Put the gas to the metal, or put your foot on the gas. You gotta know when do I need to change strategy as well. So I think you always have to hit those things of, big thing for me, obviously on the operations side is tracking the KPIs. So, if I have one of those and there's so much inventory in Florida right now, well, if I'm in a Florida market, hopefully through my KPIs I've been tracking, I'm going to know how long my properties are sitting in the market. Is that what are we usually averaging? Is that above average, below average? And I'm going to be able to make decisions off of that. So if I see a trend that's happening over, 3 weeks in a row or 3 months in a row, depending on the KPI, then that's when I'm like, okay, we need to stop right now. And then we got to have to strategize. We have to think through this, what's going on, figure this out. And then it's either like, okay, yeah, maybe we do need to pump the brakes. Maybe we do need to, put the foot on the gas, whatever it is. I'm more of like, I always want to grow. I always want to get bigger. So me, it's more of like, I don't really want to ever put my foot on the gas. I want to figure out the strategy that's working right now. Yeah. So the example for me is a big thing right now is with wholesaling of like kind of different regulations coming down in some different states and stuff like that. Well, if I'm a wholesaler out there right now, even if it hasn't come to my state yet, what I'm going to kind of think about is like, how do I renovate a property? How do I do some construction or being able to like find funds to take down deals and do a little bit, because maybe that's not what I'm used to, but I'm probably going to have to strategize at some point. I'm going to have to move, my niche or change my niche of what I want to do. So I'm going to try to do that with a couple, maybe every 10 properties I do, maybe I'll do that just to get used to it, just to kind of feel that out of, and just lining up lenders, lining up contractors, whatever it may be, because I still want to continue to grow. I still want to scale, but I might just have to change my strategy a little bit or how I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, man. There's so many different exit strategies, and a lot of people are either direct to seller or they're buying from the wholesalers. I was always curious about this makeup of CG. What percentage? I think there's like roughly 500 businesses or so. The exact number doesn't matter, but what percentage of people do you think when they acquire, they're direct to seller in CG versus who buy through other channels, non-direct to seller?
Yeah, I think people that are direct to seller, that's probably going to be somewhere around, and I'm going to kind of make these numbers up a little bit. It's kind of a gut feeling. That's probably going to be somewhere between like 75 to 80%.
Okay, so the bulk of everybody is direct to seller.
They're going to do, hopefully, most of them are going to do multiple things. So they're those people, they're going to be doing direct to seller. They're going to be buying off the market. They're going to be having referrals and, have a relationship manager and stuff like that. It's going to be buying in multiple ways, but usually about 75 to 80%, I would assume, are going to be doing some type of direct to seller marketing. And that's for single family, that's for storage, that's for multifamily, whatever it may be.
Okay. And then so as you're kind of navigating right now, people are coming in, what are some of your disciplines that you're checking for? Like I call it underwriting. Like if somebody comes to me for this call center business, there's a couple of like checkbox that I want to see. When you're helping somebody, you're going into somebody's business or you're talking to somebody and they're struggling, what are like your favorite things that you just check on as like the foundations before we move on to smaller things?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I always kind of look at is like, a real estate investor coming in, kind of figuring out what level of business they really at, their business maturity. I'm always going to kind of look at their marketing. Are they doing just one form of marketing to have all their eggs in one basket? Or do they have what I like to call like the three-legged stool, where it's a little bit more stable and they have 3 legs that they're kind of standing on? Well, that's going to be a little bit more stable. Then you change that over to a 6-legged table. Then they're really they're really stable and they can kind of, maneuver their marketing, change some things up, test some things out a little bit. So I'm always looking at kind of what they're doing for marketing is going to kind of, tell me. And then then I'm also going to look at their team. So what kind of team do they have? Are they just solely, are they completely on their own? Are they on their own with a couple of virtual assistants? Are they on their own? Do they have like an executive assistant with them, or at least a lead manager, or do they have a operations person coming in and stuff like that? So those are really the two biggest indicators of that I'm kind of looking at. The other one that's pretty quick following that is like kind of what are they doing for funding? So are they just straightly wholesaling? Are they not using any funding at all? Are they using private money, or they have more hard money lenders, whatever it is? Those are usually the three biggest indicators of kind of tell me the business maturity that I'm talking to somebody about.
Do you find that as you're going through this exercise that a lot of people have never actually gone direct to seller? And I'll give you an example, like the CEO himself has never picked up the phone, or herself has never picked up the phone, and like they bought from other people, and then all of a sudden they start now going direct to seller and they struggle. I seem to have witnessed that, not necessarily CG people, but like we used to buy off of MLS and now we want to go direct to seller, but the guy at the top has never actually done it. And when he's never done it, there's never any that downward pressure of accountability that I find. And so they outsource or they do whatever. And I see this struggle a lot of people going from on market to off market.
I think there is maybe kind of a little bit of a trend of that at some point. I honestly feel like the biggest majority of our members, especially the CG, or most people that I'm around anyway, they've been the one in the weeds that have picked up that phone and have done that, or at least they were the point. Maybe they used to buy off the court. People that used to buy off the courthouse steps, and are in an auction, or off the MLS and stuff like that, and have learned how to do direct to seller. But I feel like a lot of people that I'm around anyway, they've been that person. They've been the one person in their business, doing the direct to seller, the main acquisitions person, wearing the multiple hats, and then they've expanded from there and stuff. So that brings on another challenge. So there's the people that you're talking about that, hey, they've never been the one on the phone, or been the one that knocks on the door and got in the house to have those conversations. Or in the opposite of that, it's the person that's always done that, and now they have to lead somebody that's doing that. Being able to kind of take to step back and be like, oh man, my role wasn't like getting the deals anymore. Now it's like leading people, and I don't know how to do that because I've never been trained on how to lead or how to manage or anything. And managing people is super tough. So as you grow your business, you always have these different things that just pop up, and these different problems and things. It's about connecting with people that have been through it, and then just learn how to adapt and adjust and kind of grow with your business.
Yeah. One thing I appreciate about your network that you guys have built is it's the first time because I had some experience in the REI space, and then I got real close to you guys. I got to see a lot of operationally high level guys, but it was the first time I saw people creating brands and staying behind brands. And what I felt about that is like, okay, there's permanence in this. This is not a turn and burn. This is not hey, we're just here for a year or so, see what we can do until that next distraction comes down the pipeline. These are guys that are building family portfolios. And these are guys that are creating valuable brands that have in the marketplace, an equity value in the marketplace.
Yeah. I think that's super key. Just starting small scale on a brand. You need that brand at number one, like just for Google reviews, to have that reputation, to build that on that. So people to have that level of trust. And then through that too, then it becomes, we were talking about this with CG. It's not about Jason or about me or anything like that. It's about the team. It's about the community and stuff. It's the same thing as you have a growing business, a growing brand. It's not necessarily about that CEO that's at the top or that built the business, but about that team that they have pride in it. They want to kind of, feed into that stuff as well and things. And then just, being able to have those, we have multiple niches and being able to do multiple things and stuff like that too. When you can build it off of a brand and what that looks to. And, we look at a lot of times too, that brand is really that kind of thing is when people talk about their branding, it's really kind of the culture that they want to bring into their business as well. So, you look at your brand of the rocket ship on here and stuff like that. Like and I know about you a little bit, like you're a hard charger, like your logo, your brand kind of says that about you and things like that. So, it kind of brings in, that's an indication of the culture that you're bringing into your business. So, it all starts with branding and people growing things. And of course, too, as you build your own personal brand, your company brand, that's where more deals come from that as well. So it makes, you're able to put yourself out there. People know you all a little bit better, and it makes relationships a little bit easier. If a lot of times if people want to talk about CG and stuff, they can research the heck out of CG and find a ton of stuff and things. So when they come talk to me or talk to somebody on our team, because of that brand, they know what's behind it. Same thing with, with Lamisu. There's so much stuff out there. You created such a great brand and have so many things behind it. As when you have a client that comes to you, they've already been able to do their research. Yeah. So you're starting as like 1 to 2 versus the 0 to 1.
Yeah. I think that this is a big gap in the REI space is people don't even take the most baseline protections of buying their brand name in online searches. I mean, that's like the most rudimentary, let alone you can have some SEO articles and you have some backlinks to your site as you should. But for God's sakes, don't let your competitor buy your brand name.
Yeah. But there's so many things with that. There's so many things with that, Scott, of like people that, again, come back to this, like people that have grown these businesses, like you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
So all of a sudden you have this brand and you build it. Well, I didn't go to school for marketing. I haven't been to business. I don't know how to like do this kind of stuff. So that's why you need to make sure you're connecting with people that have been through it. So then they can say like, well, hey, don't forget about this. Make sure you're checking on this. And hey, I'm going to meet with this SEO, expert who's going to tell me like, hey, make sure my website's set up the right way. And then I'm going to meet with this digital marketer over here to make sure that everything's done and stuff like that. Cause I mean, there's so many times that even it probably has happened to me at least sometime this week where I was like, oh man, I didn't even think about it. I didn't know I was supposed to do that, but that's who we are in this entrepreneur world. And that's the fun part about it, I think.
Well, one of the things I like to encourage the young men and women that I consult with or help with as they're kind of getting off the ground is, dude, it's worth the $500 to go get the BBB torch. For God's sakes, remember your avatar. Yes, I understand you're 32 and you go to TikTok, you go to wherever else for your reviews, but your 72-year-old Gladys Smith, she's going to the BBB. She actually thinks the BBB is a federal agency to protect her. It's really the Better Business Bureau. And one of the cool things that you can do is in your DocuSign, you can put that as your company logo, beside your company logo, in your agreement itself, at the footer, at the header, beside. And like you can do all these little small things to really help increase your conversion ratio. But like I said, if no one says that to you or you don't think about it, then you're like, oh yeah, shit, I should actually include that torch in my contract. Why wouldn't I include it as a background logo?
Well, that's what I look at, like something like that because we've all been through that. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to pay that $500 or whatever it is. But the reality is like, think of every conversation you have or every piece of information you put out there, whatever it is, that's always it's like a $20,000 conversation or a $20,000 piece of paper that you send to somebody or whatever it is, because that one little thing that you could do could equate to $20,000 on a wholesale deal or a flip deal or whatever it may be. So that was like a big thing for me, mindset wise on, even come back to the sales stuff of like every conversation I have and every conversation that my team members are having, it's a $20,000 conversation. I want to make sure we know exactly what we're saying and dig it out there. So yeah,
I will literally be walking out there and repeating that is a $20,000 conversation you're having. In my head, I'll be honest with you, I've been thinking, oh, that's a $272 conversation because that was the cost per the lead. But the reality is it's a $20,000 conversation. I love that, Brian. I want to tell you about my observations from an outsider and then kind of get your feedback. I got into the industry like right before the hedge funds and everything was perfect and everybody's loving life and woo, printing money. And I was like, man, I don't see a lot of structure to sales processes. As a matter of fact, it is the gospel. The only reason why I got into this industry is I went on a couple of different websites when Alex Quezada in Orlando was like, hey, man, you should get into this industry. He told me about it. I filled out forms. Nobody called me back. And the few people that did, they didn't have a pitch. It was the worst thing I've ever heard. So I felt like people were able to be numbers savvy, but not communication savvy and still make money. I feel like those margins have dropped where like now sales skills matters more than ever. Yeah. But is there a percentage of people out there who really don't have a sales process who are still successful? Like they have an operational process, and they're still successful because, hey, it doesn't take that much in the REI space?
There are definitely still those people out there and stuff. And you're right on this too, of like where that it's definitely shifted and definitely changed where 3-4 years ago, we could completely, mess up on underwriting a deal or mess up on a sales conversation, something like that, and still make money. We could still buy. We could make a $20,000 mistake on buying and still make $20,000 on the back end or whatever it is. And that's, so that there are still some of those people that are out there operating stuff like that. But I will say that like I don't think they're the people that don't necessarily last. Yeah. So there's definitely people out there that can, when you're, I don't know. I mean, the people that I want to associate myself with in this industry are the people that want to have a business and grow that business on a firm foundation. It's not just to make some money and do a couple deals. That can be done. I can 100% like sling some deals and not have a sales process and make some money and probably be okay. But if I want to have a business that I can grow a team and, build a legacy for future generations or whatever it may be, like you want to make sure you have a sales process, not a sales process. You want to have an operations process, a hiring process, a sourcing private money process. Everything you're doing should be process driven and things like that, because that's just how you get better. And that's how you train people. There's all the, going back to that situation that I had of like where people really struggles when they're that sole person that's going out there and they're in acquisitions, but then they don't have a sales process. That training is way harder to train that person to make sure we're doing. And and that like, oh, well, sometimes I do this and sometimes I do that and something like, no, it's got to be like, hey, we do this, this, and this, and then we're gonna train on it. We're gonna make sure it's good, and then if it doesn't work, then we got to readjust that process and figure that out. Because when you're hiring, you can't necessarily trust them right away to make those. Oh, I know how to do this, and I know when to do this because I've been doing it for so long. But a new hire isn't going to know that.
When you think about the glaring omissions, or, again, I'm not picking on any specific person, but it's like, okay, the one thing that I'm like typically finding in somebody's sales process that they have room for improvement on is what?
I really find it like, I think the lead management process is the one that people fall a little bit short on. Number one, because mainly they're the main acquisition person. They usually have that handled. That's usually pretty good. And I think some people go to like they're going to rehire or replace themselves on acquisitions, and that does pretty well. And then marketing, they kind of have it figured out. But when I was working with Gary Harper and traveling all over the nation, coaching people and stuff like that for a couple of years, like I would go into businesses and usually they would all say, "Hey, I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads." Everybody wants more leads. But we actually dug into it. Like they didn't necessarily have a marketing problem or a leads problem. They had a lead management problem.
Yep.
Of how they were handling it. So I think that's the biggest gap in the industry. And that's marketing is a kitschy word. Everybody, they gravitate towards that. Sales is that kitschy word. They're always, if I did 3 presentations and I did a sales room, a marketing room, and a lead management room, that lead management room I know would be the least attended. But it's probably the most important thing in there. And that's one of those things I think is hire. have this conversation all the time of your first hire in your organization should either be an executive assistant or a lead manager. If you're an operations person, you need to hire a lead manager. If you're a salesperson, you need to hire an executive assistant. And those are the 2 most important roles in an REI space.
I'm speaking at a small coaching thing tomorrow online, and my whole presentation is on nurture sequencing, et cetera. And when I came into this industry, I still believe this is true. Even as much as I've screamed this from the mountaintop, it's like, okay, lead managers got to have them unequivocally without a doubt. But I also want non-human engagement with my leads. I don't want my closers to open up the leads and read the notes. I don't even want my leads manager to read the notes because you have a bias. Last time I talked to Gladys, she cussed me out. So on top of all these things, we need to have drip sequencing and automation and triggers. But what I found, and I still, again, believe is true to this day, is that this industry is really good at the no contact, no pitch yet nurture sequencing. Like, hey, Barbara, you filled out a form on our website. We're still trying to reach you. We're buying more homes in your area. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to present an offer. We're in the area. Everybody's got that. But the leads that said, screw you. Leads that said, I would never sell for that price. The leads that said, I'm going to list with the realtor. The leads that were terminated, that they got cussed out on. There's so much money in those leads, and this industry refuses to talk to the people who said, I hate you. Yeah. That's where the money's at.
And the reality is that you got to focus on those because there are so many less, deals down the properties that are sold on the MLS, 2023 compared to 2024, they were down like 40% or 35% to 40%. Like there's way less deals that are out there and stuff. You mentioned that those stats before. Inventory sitting a little bit longer, and there's also just less houses out there. We're at that point of like those people that got their interest rate during COVID, like they can't, like they're really sticking to their property. They can't afford to move anywhere else in a lot of these markets because it's appreciated and stuff. So we need to capitalize on any and every deal that we have. And I used to love those situations. And once I got out of the day-to-day of dealing with our sellers and talking to those all the time, I used to love those situations where I could sit down with my sales team and kind of show off the skills a little bit of like, oh wait, those leads that you're having a little bit of trouble with, give me those. Let me get those. I'll set some appointments up with those and stuff. So
absolutely.
But that was the competitive side and the fun side of sales for me is those ones that just, oh yeah, I set an appointment because it was super easy. And like, they replied to a direct mail and yeah, if I called them, they answered back. I set an appointment. Like there's no skill involved in that. But those ones that like, oh, I had to turn that conversation. They were upset with me and I had to calm them down, diffuse the situation, explain the situation, explain how we're doing, explain how we can help, and then turn it around and get an appointment out of those. Those were always the best deals too.
And so for the guys or gals that are maybe listening, they're like, okay, yeah, I got a bunch of terminated leads. Just remember the number that they wanted in 2021, you can now offer them today. The number that they wanted in 2022, you can now offer them today. And people are like, oh yeah, I guess now I can call them back. And it's like, yes, now their number is 70 or just 60% of ARV. So the market's changed so much and you still own those leads. going back to what you said, if we could wave a magic wand and we force Left Main and GHL and every CRM provider out there, we were just like, hey, what I need you to do is at the top of every funnel, attach the actual numerical value to that spend on that lead funnel. The way that this, and if it was a law passed by CG, you be in CG, you must put your numerical value beside your leads. This whole industry would make so much more money because like you said, all they're thinking about is, hey, that next lead versus the leads that I've already spent $4 million on, $2 million on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is too, you always go back to the person, like what that person's going through. That person that calls me and cusses me out, like the reality is like, if you're wholesaling deals, they're in a situation. The only reason they're going to wholesale something to you is because they're in a situation that is not great. Their day probably is pretty rough. Like they probably didn't want to get a cold call or a text or a direct mail piece from you because they're stressed out right now. They got a lot of stuff going on. So sometimes they just need to be heard. They need to be listened to and figure out what's actually going on. And like I said this before, when you make it about the person and what's going on with them, you're going to usually be able to like turn some situations around and help yourself out and help them out because that's what it's really about.
And to further that, sales resistance typically is inherent, especially if you've been burnt or scammed before. And like you said, these people are going through something. So they deserve to have their gloves up. They deserve to not trust. They deserve to think that you're just trying to lowball them because maybe we didn't spend the time to educate them first and then help them. It's when you go directly for the throat that you have those types of issues. So I've always found is that the people who need the most help are the ones who push away from the help the hardest, because they're trying to protect themselves. And then once you can break down, create some commonality, reduce that sales resistance, then you'll get them to open up and increase sales acceptance. And then that's when your sale, your actually process of describing your product can start.
100%. So, and the reality is too, like in our industry, there's always, in every industry, there's some bad characters out there and stuff too. There's a pretty good chance they might have been burnt in some way, or somebody was, like kind of, made them feel bad about a situation or stuff like that. So we always got to keep that stuff in mind as we're talking to people.
You think REI right now, 2025, excuse me, but do you think you think this is a young man's game or an old man's game? And I consider us old men, by the way, just so you know. I'm putting us in the
I'm an old man. I'm getting a little bit. You got some gray in your beard. I got some gray in mine. So.
It's the lighting.
I think there's a lot. I think it's a good mix of where I think the people that have the old man's game, that have those established businesses, and they slow things down a little bit more. They're a little bit more adapt to strategize and kind of figure out they kind of been through it a little bit, know when to. We were talking before and like pump the brakes or push on the gas. They know that a little bit. There's something to be said for that 100%. But then there's the people too with just automation and innovation and AI. I do think the younger generation is going to have a leg up over some of us old folks. I know you're a great person when it comes to AI and innovation. You're doing a great job of that. But there's some resistance for that. I think a little bit in businesses for the old school guys and things. So I think there's a good thing for the young generation to come in and do that. So where am I going to do? I'm looking for hire some younger people that can come in and that's their language. It's second nature to them. They know what's out there and what's being used and things like that. But at the same time too, is I think there's nothing you can't put past, or there's so much to be said for that person that's been through it. That wise person is like, hey, I know what's going to happen here, and I know not to, hey, make sure you're keeping some of that, take some chips off the table, as Jason Medley says, of hold back on some of that money because it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies in this world.
There's something to be said about just pure underwriting at speed. Yeah. And that comes with experience. And right now, I don't know the AI tool that's going to do it. I'm sure there's something I'm missing out. But underwriting for me is one of the toughest things out there. It's literally an art. And so for me, who's not an artist, and maybe spatially I also don't have enough data to recognize it, I really respect that part of the business so much. And that's why I say, hey, man, the guys with experience, they have this really huge asset here that makes them more leveraged than these guys. These guys got the hustle muscle and they're, like you said, the technology. And it's like when those two forces can combine, when you really do have a seasoned underwriter and also somebody who's experienced on the marketing channels and they got the hours that they're willing to put in on the sales side, you can really have a synergistic team right there to go to the next level.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I was in that situation before of where, we were doing a ton of deals. We were doing, 250, 300 deals a year, but I was in that situation where I was still like, man, why are we losing out on this deal? Or what happened here? Or like, why is this person beating us? Well, it's because, I was buying all my data. I was like outsourcing, I was kind of I was kind of like a third party for all my lead stuff, and I was kind of hands off a little bit. Well, the people that were beating me were the people that were actually going out there and knocking on doors and kind of doing stuff. They're still getting sourcing their data at the courthouse steps because they couldn't afford to buy it. Well, they were beating me because they're getting to it a little bit quicker or whatever it may be. So it's like, all right, now we need to do the old school stuff, but we got to do the new stuff too. We got to go back to the roots of like, hey, how do we start this business? What were we doing originally, and kind of get back into the weeds on some stuff and find the right people to do that and things. So I think that's what it's all about. It's part of adjusting with the business. I mean, you've seen it though with direct mail. It's cyclical. It's up, it's down. It's every marketing source is going to be like that. So you always got to be able to have some different stuff within there to be able to get those leads into your system.
Yeah, I always say you can't shortcut the shortcut, and wholesaling is already the shortcut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when you're trying to overly optimize that, not that it can't be made better, everything can be made more efficient. But like you said, you see these guys who want to make it where they set it and forget it. A perfect example is they're like, hey man, I'm going to use them for data. I'm going to use you for cold calls. By the way, can you close for me too? And I'm like, buddy, you're buying the data through me. You're fronting, getting the front, and I'm going to just send you a check. Like if it was that easy, like I would just go into your market and just do the whole thing. Like it really does. It takes a village here. Like we're going to be the front guys in the battlefield. You guys are going to be the heavy equipment in the backside, et cetera. I want to tell you a quick story about CG, something that I bet you happens to a lot of people. At least it happened to me. And I could see how it potentially happens to others. And that is, I didn't even know the resources that I was sitting on. I don't know if I didn't pay attention, I didn't educate, or wasn't explained, but probably after 2 years of being in CG, my business partner at the time, me and Alex Cazada, we just took down 2 properties, and I'm looking at like loan documents, and I'm like, okay, $250,000 property loan. Everything out of pocket was like $4,700. I said, oh my God, what is this? I looked at another one, it was a $500,000 property we took down. Out of pocket was like $25,000. I said, wait a minute, how did we just put out of pocket 30 grand for $750,000, and we got these houses that are like rock star deals, like where it got them on the leads? I said, where did this come from? They're like, Kiavi. I said, where the hell these come from? They were like, oh, it came from CG because of our relationship there. And I was like, how have we not been doing that? I was so mad at myself first, and then second to my partner. I was like, how have we not been doing this for forever from the day that we walked in? So how do you feel when you hear that?
Man, that's so number one, like I feel like I dropped the ball because I didn't engage you and like make sure you knew the information and things. That's why I always look at like, hey, what can I do better?
Yeah, damn it, Brian. How many deals did I miss on because of Jesus?
That's the biggest thing is like I think it's part of being a part of any community. That's what you want to do. It's all about the relationship. So what are those connections that can come out of it and stuff like that? And we at CG, we of course want to put the best members in the room to be able to have those conversations and high level tactics and in the weed stuff and like what are you going to do next and leadership and things. But we also want to put the best like service providers in there as well and give people a chance to not say like, hey, just use this service provider for this or whatever, but put 2 or 3 in there for each different thing and be like, hey, talk to each one of those and see what fits for you, see what works for you, what fits your company's culture, core values, things like that, because that's kind of service provider you want to work with and then stuff. And the same thing with whatever it is, whether it's lenders or certain relationships, we want to make sure that we have the highest level of all those things. And then of course there's certain things too, like, hey, because you're a member of CG, we have a great relationship with certain people that like you get special rates, you get special deals, there's special offerings because you're a part of a great organization. So
yeah, I think the perks that you get, and literally then I started going through and looking at all the vendor lists and I was like, oh, this is great and this is awesome. And so anyways, it meant a lot to me because it changed immediately upon seeing that. It literally changed my trajectory. It changed what my mindset was at least foremost. And like, okay, this is so much more attainable. And one of the things that I found, because I started in the wholesaling side, and we've done a number of takedowns, co-livings now, we sprinkled them in, but I got addicted to the wholesaling drug. I mean, I got addicted to it hard, and it was hard to even entertain the idea of not being like, oh, 20K. 25K. And it was hard to get off of that mousetrap or that hamster wheel, for a really, really long time. And still even hard to the day. It's just by default, it's easier.
Yep. I think, we talked about how important underwriting is. Well, I think that next piece that you really need, like in the established business, high level business, is that basically that property analyzer of like, what's the best course of route to do with this? So when you do get that deal, like, hey, it's better to just go ahead and wholesale this for 20K in 15 days or whatever it is. Or like, hey, we should actually flip this one because we can make 60, but it's going to take, 2 months. It's worth the risk for that. Or, hey, this is a great one that we need to pull back and hold. And then we're gonna bird this out or whatever it is. We're having basically a property analyzer, I think, is that next course of action when you're looking at established businesses of what they have versus what people that don't have established businesses, what they don't have. It's that property analyzers that can underwrite, but it can also know what's the best course of action for this property at any given time.
This is me now being selfish because I have a captive audience here. I have you here. How are you feeling about co-living right now? Do you know anybody who's kind of heavy in it? Do you have any success yourself with it?
I have not myself and stuff, but I've seen a couple people doing it. So I know I've sold a handful of deals here in Indianapolis, and that's what people are doing with co-living and stuff like that. So again, it's something of adapting to the times. I feel like the younger generation, they're more adept to, or they're more open to co-living, where that sounds terrible to me. I would never want to do that and stuff, but the younger generation's all about it. So if that's what's working right now, or that's what's out there for particular markets, like, yeah, let's test it out. Let's see what it is. Let's track the KPIs behind it. Let's see what success we're having with it, and then run with it if it makes sense.
I don't mean any disrespect to the dead, but about 2 weeks ago, we got a message at like 11 o'clock at night that somebody had passed away in one of our co-living units. We're like, oh God. So stuff happens. But and that was in Jacksonville, Florida. We still haven't gotten the full police report yet. But I'll tell you the reason why I found an affinity for co-living, Brian, is we started looking at all of our numbers between our Airbnbs and really out of all of the different channels that we had to with our properties. It's like, man, our Airbnbs are tanking. Our co-living is the most profitable. It's literally out of all my portfolio, it's the only thing that's truly like cash flowing. All the rest are just gaining equity.
Your co-living, is it for like assisted living for the older generations? Or
No. It's co-living as in like you take a 3-bedroom, turn it into a 5-bedroom, no commons area, pad split, if you will. Because that's who we use to manage all of our properties is pad split. And man, it's the only thing producing money that on a cash flow basis.
Yeah.
For us, my level
those
of
are doing
experience.
well. And then on the other side of that too is the other side of the generation are the assisted living facilities. So there's so many of that generation where they're ready to, maybe their spouse has passed away and they want somewhere else to go live and they want to be able to mingle, be able to talk to other people. So it's a good opportunity for that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Eli, for the compliment, my man. We appreciate that, brother. All right, cool. One last little observation, man, or a few small little things. I don't know if I told you this. I may have told you this the other day. I said, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was from last event from the CGs. And it wasn't even about real estate. This gentleman, I can't remember his name, but when I see him, I'm going to go up to him because he taught me about a book. And he said the most powerful thing about his relationship with his wife that inspired me. Then he said something about his relationship with his kids, and he talked about this book. And I got that book, and it's been impactful, and it's been so beautiful. But what I really love about your company, about the Mastermind, is it's almost like a faith-driven group. And nobody's hiding their faith in there either. And so there's a lot of men of faith in there. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. And so walk me through that, because I am attracted to that, because I think that's who I want to personally surround myself with. But I'm also in love with people who don't hide their beliefs, no matter what their beliefs may be. And I feel like that group, everybody is proud. So walk me through that.
Yeah. I think that's what it's about. No matter what your, religious affiliation is or what your faith really, it doesn't matter, but it comes back to like having, it's who you are as a person. I know I'm at my best as a leader, as a business leader, when I'm kind of more firm in like kind of what I believe in, who I am and everything like that. And I think that's, for anybody, you have to be a well-rounded person. You're going to be a better leader. You're going to do better in business if you are better, well-rounded. I know if my wife and I are fighting or arguing about something, I'm probably going to have an off day in the office that day and stuff like that. But when things are clicking with she and I, well, all of a sudden, hey, my business life is going pretty well as well. And I'm sure there's the same thing too. When you can put those things together, like, hey, I'm being an awesome leader for my business. I'm being an awesome leader for my spouse. I'm being an awesome leader for my kids. For my church, for my community, whatever it may be, when you can put all those things together, and a lot of it is, leadership. If you can develop yourself as a business leader, but if you develop yourself as a human leader, as a person leader, like you are going to just do better at any given thing. So we all know I'll relate this back. Kind of, you asked me about being a teacher as well. One of the first presentations I ever did in CG was basically what made me successful as a teacher is the same stuff that makes me successful in the business world. Well, it's the same stuff with any type of leadership. So it's not necessarily business skills or this is that. It's people skills. It's being able to relate to, be able to take a break, listen to a situation, be able to diffuse it, be able to figure out what's the best situation for somebody else. And that's what leadership is. That's what business is. And that's what, being married is, being a father is, whatever it may be. So,
yeah, I picked this up on you very clearly just from observing. I feel like you lead with like an empathetic heart, empathetic mind. Like you're there, but it's tactical on the other side of hearing whatever the issues or concerns may be. You're acknowledging, you're listening, you're giving it its full consideration, but then it's tactical on the backside. And I think that's a good reflection too of what most people will get, no matter who they're talking to on the leadership team at CG, which is somebody who's going to listen to you, but they're going to give you some suggested marching orders on the backside of that. It's no pity parties here. It's tell us what you got going on and then execute. So one last question. What do you see as the future for CG? What's in the pipeline over the next months, years for Collective Genius?
So we're going to keep growing. That's who we are. We're in a business of helping other people scale people, but we want to do the same thing, because if you bring more people into the community through, more people, more product offerings, collaborating with other masterminds and partnering with them and doing stuff like that, that's where it is for us. We want to basically, we want to grow a bigger community, because it's about those relationships and the resources that you get from it. By being able to, when you're having trouble with a certain thing and being able to connect you with more people, we have more people in our funnel to make those connections. That's what it's all about. We were just on a meeting today. We have our event next week. Pumped to hear your presentation of that event stuff. So, but we're talking about that at that event. We're meeting as a team to kind of go over the last minute touches and what we're going to do and stuff. And I just kind of reminded the team of remember that no matter what we're doing there, if you find yourself behind your laptop or kind of sitting in one spot, remember it's all about the members. So you need to get up, walk around, check on people, talk to people, and stuff like that, because that's what it's all comes back to, is our members are number one and our community is number one. And if we grow that community, that's where we want to be able to help more people.
Yeah, you guys are definitely solution finders. There's no doubt about it. If you raise your hand and you need something in that community, it will be in your email inbox. It'll be somebody you're being introduced to. It's almost aggressive. It's almost like you almost want to test the limits, be like, and I need a Lamborghini, just to see if all of a sudden one pops up outside, because you guys are so good at executing on whatever ask it is.
If that's what you need, we'll get you connection one for one of the. I'm not coming out of my pocket for one, but I'll get you connection.
Oh, come on. Fair enough. All right, cool. Brian, how do we find you online, or how do we find out more about Collective Genius, so that way our followers can kind of see what it's like behind the scenes?
Yeah, best thing is just, go to thecollectivegenius.com. Best place for resources for all this stuff. You can obviously find us on, Facebook and Instagram as well. At the Collective Genius. So we're there to happy to help you out. You can reach out to me. I'm just Brian at the Collective Genius as well. Happy to help you guys out with whatever it is or answer any of your questions.
Yeah. And if anybody would like any candid feedback from myself, I've been in that now for a couple of years. I'm super blessed to be able to come speak and share some sales insights here in another week or so. And but I'd love to tell you guys, anybody behind the scenes, if you have any questions that you want to ask from the member side, feel free to reach out to me as well too, guys. And it'd be my honor to share with you my thoughts, which are just amazing so far. So I appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for taking the time out of your hectic day. I know here you guys are going crazy preparing for this awesome event in Dallas, Texas on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in it. And thank you for coming out here and shooting the breeze with us today.
So awesome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.